It all began on June 11th when a family of 4 went camping in Canada's Great Bear Rainforest, and later will regret it. As usual, the family went to their favorite camping area, which was deep in the woods. It wasn't long before the situation would make a horrible turn. The family occasionally went to this park. The 4 of them always went together. It was only that June that their trip didn't go as expected. Their uncle, Tom, who owned the vehicle, was 65. Tom brought the others along with him. Jim, who was Tom's brother, is 30. His wife, Amelia, who was 24. And their daughter, Charlie, who was 16 at the time. Their departure was coming up, and they had a long road ahead. But Tom was more adventurous than others, and would often plan trips that didn't seem so safe. It was his job to plan for the trip after all, as he covered the expenses. He would often forget to bring the proper equipment for the journey, as the trips were not well calculated. It never was a problem before, but what is to come, family's luck will be up to test.
We had made our plans for the 10th of June. As usual, everything was fine. And we was just enjoying ourselves, so I said, all right, y'all, let's hit the road, and that's when our horrors began.
We were about 1.5 hours away from our destination when we got the first sign that something was wrong. There was this awful smell coming from the woods. It was like a decade animal, but worse. At a time I could only imagine when it could possibly be.
After that very long drive, we finally got there. And it was so beautiful as always. We got out of the car and began to run around and look for spots to set up our tents. I'm just really getting close tonight. Jim was setting up the tents, and Mom was unpacking the car. Tom, my uncle, just wanted with his shotgun, and I just went to get some firewood. There was something unusual that I noticed when I stumbled upon very large footprints. I didn't think anything of it as I went back. We had a very fun time. We ate, laughed, and played until something shocking happened. We were all around the fire when a series of gunshots went off and Tom wasn't there. Earlier, he said he was going by the creek, which was not far and almost in sight. It only started to creep us out when we shouted for him. Tom! Tom! And there was no answer.
I was down in the woods by the creek when I ventured further and saw a cute rabbit, so I followed it. The rabbit didn't take me far because I only walked for about a half hour. Because of my age, I couldn't sit at the fire with them and do nothing or wait. The entire night just to shoot some hummingbird, so I went off to go hunt something. I might even catch something big. So I took a short trip into the forest. Not after long following the rabbit, something happened. The rabbit stopped, and then sprinted my way. Thought it caught the rabies or something, so I jumped back. I was just going to give it a mercy killing when I started to hear rumbling in the bushes. By the sound of the footsteps, it sounded very large. Plus, I realized I only had one bullet because I forgot to bring the whole pack of them. I thought, this is the moment I've been waiting for. It wasn't a deer or a bear. It sounded larger. And since I had one bullet, I only have one shot. I couldn't pinpoint my finger the animal, but I knew it sounded big and good. After all, I was going to come back with a fortune. I lifted my shotgun towards the bush, or where I thought it was at. But then what happened in the next split second changed my mind. At first, a growl. Then there was a large, hairy creature moving at high speeds towards me. All I know is that I could have mistaken him for a human, but a hairy one. I could barely run. So I went out swinging. I fired maybe 50 rounds, and only one bullet hit him because I only had one bullet. But at least it saved my life as he fled the scene.
At around this time, it was 10 p.m. It's only sometime after he makes it back, when they realize they have to leave.
We all began to panic because he said he was going to the creek, and he just wasn't there. I told Charlie to stay there and not to move. Jim and I went towards where we last saw him. We did not go far. We called for him, but there was nothing. We were then afraid something bad had happened.
At that point, I just decided that we would go back because there was nothing else that we could do. I was going to look for Tom by myself because I didn't want to alarm her. I told my wife, look, Tom probably just went somewhere else. Let's just go back and wait for him. And we agreed. Well, at least she did.
Mom and Dad returned empty-handed. I was kind of disappointed, especially that they told me everything was okay. And that was not the case. Dad will go on to sneak off, which we were not aware of. Anyway, me and Mom went back to replenish our burnt marshmallows.
I went off to go look for Tom in the direction I perceived him. I walked for about 3 minutes, and there he was. Tom, running towards me like a raging bull. He was all exhausted, and I couldn't even tell if he was excited or in distress. All he said was, "We got to get back so I can tell you," as I was eager to hear what he had to say.
Tom and Dad emerged from the woods. We were shocked because we didn't see Dad go anywhere. Tom would then go on to tell Dad and Mom how he shot some sort of gorilla. And when they asked him if he killed it, and he was dumbfounded. And Dad went on to ask him why did he run if he shot it. Tom said it was aggressive and scared him, as I imagined the gorilla to be, and it was simply not what he was looking for. We simply all just went back to what we were doing.
It's about midnight when the flashlights went off due to its batteries. The car was about a 5-minute walk from our camp. So I went there to get another battery. It was dark and, of course, creepy. When I got back to the car, I got the batteries out of the trunk. I began to head my way back, when out of nowhere something very large and horrible smelling came rushing through the woods up ahead towards where our tents were.
We were all doing our thing when out of nowhere. There was something coming from the bushes and something very big. It had sounded like what Tom had described, but not exactly. It smelled so horrible I wanted to puke. At that very moment, boulders came flying out of the bushes, but all of them directed towards Tom.
I heard some rustling in the bushes. I just wanted to get a closer look when I saw 2 large boulders flying towards my leg and lastly, my head. I didn't know what had happened afterwards because I was just sleeping peacefully.
I was confused because I didn't know what it was. It sounded like it was running on 2 feet. What shocked me even more, it's when it started to throw boulders at Tom. Specifically, I never heard of such a thing. Then I thought maybe the gorilla came back to take revenge. Even though Tom said he shot it, he didn't mention where. After all, Tom could have shot him in the hand.
It was at that moment I realized that we had to go. Tom was laying there injured. Charlie was confused. My wife was at the car. And there I was, weaponless. It was a bad situation. I quickly shouted at Charlie to grab her things. I grabbed Tom as we headed out of there.
My dad told me to get my stuff, and I didn't really grab anything but my phone because I was too scared. We ran back to the car. I also wondered why it didn't come out of the woods to attack us.
When we saw Jim and Tom, we got the car. I jumped in the front seat. I was yelling at everyone to hurry up and get in.
I thrust Tom into the car as he lay there unconscious, and Charlie got in. I then told my wife, look, if this is the gorilla Tom was talking about, I'm gonna take care of it. She had bought a secret gun with her because she had worked for the military, so I took it with me, although she didn't like the idea. I headed back to the camp in a bit hurry. I could just hear the gorilla obliterating our camp as I was pissed and determined to kill it. Also, the gun she gave me was not an ordinary gun. I didn't know the name of it. I just knew it could afflict serious damage. I swiftly emerged into the open area where the camp was. To my shock, everything was obliterated beyond recognition. There were even fallen trees, and of course the gorilla under a large tree with bushes that barely disguised him. I shouted, "Douchebag!" I hope you're satisfied because you have no idea how much these things cost. He just stood there. No apology, nothing. So I spoke in his language.
We were waiting in the car for maybe 20 minutes and 5 minutes of gunshots. It seemed to be quite long. Jim came running back all arrogant, and we immediately left. As we drove, he only had talked about how he shot it and what he was doing, boastfully.
When I woke up, we were leaving. After we came all the way out here to go hunting and bring back something big, we were just leaving. So we started arguing. I made my case, and my brother our safety, and we lost all of our stuff. The gorilla ate the food, the cat got his tongue, blah blah blah, and so on. But me being more reasonable said, look, I got a couple bags of peanuts in my pocket. We got some trash bags back there to sleep on. We got flashlights. I got my gun. Then he said, you got no bullets. So then I said, Amelia got her gun. And he said he used all of those bullets. So then said, we don't need a freaking at all. And he continued to make excuses like we need to be prepared in the case of an alien, of an invasion or boogeyman. We will only keep going on like this until what happened next. A tree fell, and then 8 black figures the size of Goliath from all sides surrounds us. They looked like the gorilla that I shot, but way bigger. There was no escape. As my life flashes before my eyes, I made my last attempt to survive, which was actually my last attempt to survive. I rolled down the window, just enough for negotiations, and slipped them my only bag of peanuts. My third boulder of the night was presented before me at the speed of lightning. Boom. And that was the last thing I'd seen of our trip.
But it's too late. As you can see, this thing is very large and it has friends. It's not like you can just fight it. I mean, something that big. What would you have done?
Out of panic, she immediately puts the car in reverse and floors it. Angry Bigfoots come running after them. They were shouting at each other, trying to come up with a plan. When Amelia said, I have one, she immediately switches the gears to drive. The whole family was shocked. She accelerates, pushing the car to its limits. At that moment, a huge rock flew out of the bushes, hitting the front window, making the car swerve and crash into a huge boulder, the sudden impact throwing them forward. A low, guttural roar echoed through the darkened forest, sending shivers down their spines. As the survivors inside the car exchanged terrified glances, the terrifying reality of their situation sank in. They had killed a young Bigfoot, and now its family was here for revenge. The boulder, thrown with immense force, shattered the front window where Amelia was seated. The screams were cut short as glass exploded inward, sending the car flying, leaving her slumped and unconscious, blood staining her face. The air filled with the smell of pine, damp earth, and something else. A rank, animalistic odor. Outside, massive, shadowy figures emerged from the dense trees surrounding the crippled SUV. 8 pairs of glowing eyes, reflecting the dim emergency lights from the dashboard, fixated on them. A chilling. The Bigfoots, enraged by the attack on their king, surrounded the crashed vehicle. Jim, remembering a tactic from his black belt training, used the flashing beam of a flashlight to disorient the closest Bigfoot, momentarily blinding it. Charlie, utilizing her agility, scrambled into the back of the SUV and grabbed a handful of the fireworks, lighting them and throwing them towards the advancing creatures. The loud bangs and flashes of light startled the Bigfoots, giving the family a crucial window to escape the immediate vicinity. They stumbled through the dense woods, lost and disoriented, with the Bigfoots in pursuit. Suddenly, a glimmer of light pierced the oppressive darkness. A car, moving slowly, was approaching. Hope surged through them. Jim, still supporting Amelia, yelled and waved his arms. The car stopped. A lone figure emerged, looking agitated. "My car, I need to go." The driver, a well-built man, shouted, his tone aggressive and dismissive of their plight. Jim, despite his fatigue, felt a surge of adrenaline. This wasn't the time for pleasantries. Amelia's life, and the lives of his family, were hanging by a thread. He recognized the man's stance from his own martial arts training. "My wife needs a hospital now," Jim countered, his voice low and firm. The driver sneered, stepping closer, ready to intimidate. But Jim, a man who had faced down powerful opponents in tournaments, wasn't about to back down now. He launched a swift attack, striking the driver with a precisely aimed kick. The man, surprised, retaliated with a flurry of expertly delivered punches and kicks. Jim and Amelia, black belts with years of experience, engaged in a fierce martial arts battle with the driver. Charlie joined in, using her smaller size and quick reflexes to land distracting blows. The fight was brutal, a desperate struggle for survival. Finally, Jim landed a decisive blow, rendering the driver unconscious. They quickly dragged him aside and got into the car. Just as they were pulling away, the woods erupted with the sound of roaring engines and screeching tires. Multiple cars, filled with the unconscious driver's gang members, sped towards them. The gang members, skilled in martial arts themselves, recognized their comrade's vehicle. A hail of bullets erupted. The family was caught in a brutal shootout, dodging bullets and weaving through the trees. They returned fire with the driver's gun, retrieved by Jim during the fight, only to realize the ammunition was running low. Miraculously, they evaded the gang members and found themselves on a highway. Not long after, the wail of sirens filled the air. A police chase ensued. "This can't be happening," Charlie mumbled, terrified. They were being pursued for a stolen car, yet escaping the clutches of a violent gang. It was a nightmare within a nightmare. The chase escalated into a chaotic police shootout as the gang members continued their relentless pursuit. Jim, a man of peace, found himself in a desperate struggle, fighting against both the criminals and the police, trying to protect his family. Eventually, the stolen vehicle, riddled with bullet holes, skidded to a halt. The police, their guns drawn, surrounded the car. Jim, Amelia, Charlie, and Tom, exhausted and wounded, emerged from the vehicle, surrendering to the authorities. The shootout finally ended, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. At the hospital, surrounded by the sterile white walls and the comforting hum of machines, the family breathed a collective sigh of relief. Tom's injuries were severe, but he would recover. Amelia's concussion was concerning, but treatable. Charlie, though shaken, was physically unharmed. Jim, bruised and battered, clung to his family. They had survived, but the scars of the night would be etched into their memories forever. They never wished to relive this nightmarish ordeal, but they did what they had to do to survive, to get to the hospital and ensure the safety of their family.
After all, how would you survive this attack? I doubt it if anyone would put themselves in this situation to begin with. But you never know what situation you might be in, and most likely you won't be prepared. Would you come out alive? What are your chances at survival? It's better not to go out to these places at night. It is not a good idea at all of the ways you can die. Bigfoot might actually be the one to catch you by surprise.
Hi, my name is Megan, and this is my partner Jessica. We are the official co-host of Content Classified.